Hey everyone, it's the Kung Fu Genius, aka Alex Richter, and we have a new deal for Kung Fu Genius fans. If you go to citywt.com, you can buy any 2 of our apparel and get 1 free, and that includes the new City Wing Chun gym shirt like the one I'm wearing in the new color. Any apparel, you buy 2, you get 1 free. Just go to citywt.com and use the code KFGB2G1. That's KFGB2G1. Use that code at CityWT to get 1 free apparel with your purchase of 2 of anything, t-shirts, all that good stuff. And before we get started, if you could do me a favor and don't forget to like this video, comment on it, share it on social media, help us get the word out there. That's a tremendous help. And if you listen to us on audio, don't forget to review the podcast wherever you listen to it. And with that, let's get started.
All right, peeps. On today's episode of the Kung Fu Genius, the genius will be talking about fights in Kung Fu schools. Lots of gems, lots of Chinese gangsters, lots of your groin is open if you kick like that, bro. Let's get to it!
He is unstoppable, unbeatable, unbelievable. He's Alex Richter, the Kung Fu Genius.
And every day, I practice martial arts.
Watch out!
Word is, I'm a Kung Fu genius. Practiced all day like a genius.
All right, Dre, how's it going, man?
I'm good, Sifu. This is interesting.
Yeah, I'm super excited about today's episode. We've been doing the Ask Me Anything format, which is a lot of fun. But actually, one of the reasons why I want to go back to doing, like, let's say a topic episode is because I actually get asked a lot in the comments about, like, talking about different fights that happen in the Kung Fu schools. Usually people want to know about fights that happen at my school as if somehow every day it's like a battle zone. We're in Midtown Manhattan. I don't know where people think my school is, right? But, you know, I know
fights, man.
I know a lot of stories about, fights that have happened in martial arts schools. So I thought, why don't we just take an episode where we talk about the fights that happen in martial arts schools. Traditionally in Chinese Kung Fu, at least in Hong Kong, you say tek gun. Tek means to kick. And gun is the school. So it literally means to kick the school. So that's what they say, like to challenge a school. You say, we're going to go there to kick the school, right? Tek gun, right? So I guess we could call it like, the Tek gun episode, right? Talk a little bit about, these things happening in the past. And most the stories I have today are actually examples of things that have not happened at City Wing Chun. Yeah. But I do have one story of a wild fight that happened here at City Wing Chun. And I figured, why don't I tell that story on this episode? But I'm going to leave that one for last. So first I want to kind of go back in the day a little bit. So let's do it almost like, semi in order of how these things happen, right? So I want to actually talk way back in the day, back in the kind of early days of WT, of the Leung Ting school in the very early 70s, about a kind of an incident that happened between the Leung Ting school and a school of Choi Lei Fut Kung Fu. As you know, Choi Lei Fut, I've referenced a number of times on this episode. It's another very prominent Kung Fu system, especially in Hong Kong. There are a lot of schools over there. It's another Southern style.
Yeah.
And it kind of historically, Wing Chun and Choi Lei Fut, they essentially represent the opposite ends of the argument. Choi Lei Fut being a style that's mostly consisting of wilder, rounder, whipping, broader strikes, and Wing Chun being, the more kind of streamlined, straight line approach. So it's the kind of question of, whether the wild, I shouldn't say wild, but like the round, powerful swing can really be beaten by the straight line punch and so on. So Wing Chun and Choi Lei Fut to a certain degree.
I'm curious if I ever met any Choi Lei Fut guys.
I
probably have.
Through me, you might have. I know a number of Choi Lei Fut practitioners in Hong Kong, but when we were in Hong Kong, I don't think I introduced you to any.
When we did the Bruce Lee expedition downtown in Wall Street.
Did you say expedition?
Exhibition.
The Bruce Lee expedition.
I say shit. I just say shit. Shit comes out the way it comes out. You gotta let that shit go. You gotta keep it moving. Exhibition.
Yes.
It was down in Wall Street area.
That's right.
I believe there was
there were some other kung fu schools there, but no. The school that was there the teacher, it's wushu, so it's the mainland Chinese performance martial arts. So that's not, whenever a school teaches wushu, they generally don't teach one particular style. Wushu is essentially a performance-based version of traditional Chinese martial arts. Not even that, it's like, because in mainland China, they, the story is that they outlawed traditional Chinese martial arts around the time of the communist takeover, but they eventually created this thing called wushu, which is this more acrobatic and theatrical version of Chinese martial arts, but it was performance, it was forms. It wasn't about the actual fighting and the applications of those things. And so wushu practitioners, which Jet Li is a wushu practitioner.
Our homegirl Wu
Woman is a wushu
woman,
practitioner. Donnie Yen's mother was a wushu practitioner. And so a lot of those guys end up being really good at performing because they have such a great movement base. But these are not necessarily traditional Chinese styles. When we did that Bruce Lee exhibition, I almost said expedition, a few years ago, the school that was there was a wushu school that they performed. And the teacher, I think his name is Gao, he was in the movie Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. He was the big square-jawed dude, the guard. Yeah. So anyway, cool. But I've actually had a Choi Lei Fut guest on Dudes of Kung Fu, my good friend Sifu Brian Cuttle. And would like to have him back. He's great. He's got an awesome channel, Sifu Cuddle's channel. He always shows like, it's like if you're into all the cool Kung Fu stuff, like all the cool stuff in the movies you want to learn, like how to fight with benches, how to flip the knives, how to use the 3-sectional staff.
Benches?
Yeah, he's got all these tutorials on there. How to do like all the traditional, how to
fight with the environment.
Yeah, but like all the actually using a bench is a lot of traditional kung fu systems have that in a form, like using the Chinese bench. That's not like a Jackie Chan found weapons type thing. Like they actually have fighting with benches as a weapon, right? So he shows all that stuff, like how to spin the 3-sectional stabs and stuff. So for any of our listeners out there, you should definitely follow Sifu Cuddle's channel, Kuttel. Yeah.
Well, isn't it that last fight scene in Return to the 36th Chamber where he's fighting with the bench against Gordon Liu?
Yes, and also in there, it's the construction kung fu where he's fighting with, where he learns how to fight by rebuilding the temple, right? Yeah, it's a little bit a precursor to Miyagi-style teaching, right? So, but anyway, like, so Choi Lei Fut, supposedly we have a beef with them. Although I get along with Choi Lei Fut people infinitely better than I get along with most Wing Chun people. But anyway, there was a story.
Oddly enough.
Now, unfortunately, look, with most of these stories that I'm telling you, okay, these are stories that I heard. Some of them I heard from people who were there. Some of them I heard from people who heard it from someone else, all right? So I cannot sit here with absolute 100% authority and say the way I'm going to tell you the story right now is exactly the way it happened. Because even if the person who was directly involved in the story told me, I would still be telling you my interpretation of those events, right? And that's always the thing that you have to pay attention to whenever someone tells you a story of a challenge fight or something that happened back in the day. I'm going to try my best not to embellish anything for the sake of making the story sound cooler. But I cannot like 100% vouch for like the veracity of the exact details or whatever, right?
Got it.
But I most of these stories, usually whenever I tell a story about something like a fight or supposedly something that happened between two different people, if I wasn't there or I don't know the person, I usually wait to hear the story from two different people before I will say, okay,
interesting.
Yeah, in two different people, not like the person, not like two people who heard it from the same guy, right? Like two separate, as much as possible, eyewitness accounts, right?
Okay.
So, Sifu Leung Ting, I believe was the eldest of 5 or 6. I think 5. He's like the eldest. So he has a number of brothers and also has a younger sister, Pearl. And one of his younger brothers, was Leung Tun, Tuen, Tun, right? And he was the fighter in the family, all right? In the 70s, he was like one of the guys in the Leung Ting gym who was essentially training pretty hardcore and would go to the various full contact fighting contests that they had in Hong Kong at that time, right? So like mid 70s and stuff like that. And which is like why it's kind of like called back to our Fight Quest episode back in the day, right? You know,
Okay.
you kind of see the fall of Rome a little bit for the Leung Ting organization, because in the 70s, he was really popular in Hong Kong. He had lots of students, and he had a bunch of fighters who were training and actively fighting in full contact contests, right? You know, flash forward to 2009, and he doesn't have anyone who's ready to fight in Fight Quest, right? And to a certain degree, I mean, like, you know, I also don't have a stable of professional fighters who are ready to go and fight in that kind of contest.
Drop of a hat, yeah.
But if I knew that, you know, my students were going to have to fight in some, or some of my students wanted to fight in something, and we had 6 months to do it, I mean, I could get a team ready to go, right? But there was no one in Hong Kong in 2009 who could fight Jimmy, because most of the people there were just doing it as kind of a, you know, as a hobby or whatever. But in the 70s, he had like a bunch of bangers, and one of them was his younger brother. Now, Leung Ting, I never met him because he passed away, I believe, in the late 80s. I don't know what he passed away from. I did once see a photo of him with Sifu Kanspecht, my Sifu,
Oh, wow.
in the late 80s. I would assume this is shortly before he passed. And Leung Ting was a skinny guy in his early days. And then in the 70s, he kind of bulked, in the late 70s, he kind of bulked out a little bit. And then in the late 80s, there's one photo of him with Sifu Kanspecht where he looks like he weighs like a $105. So I have a feeling that he passed away from some terminal illness, right? He had some, I don't know what that is, right? But he's been gone for a very long time. So that's why I feel a little bit more at ease talking about him, because he was a triad. And he was not a low-level guy who just ran some extortion shit.
Oh, okay.
He was
up.
he was an enforcer. Let me just put it to you that way, okay? Because triads, you in traditional, you know, the black societies, you have various levels. You know, the red pole and all these, like, you have, like, it's like you have rank within these different triad societies. And so he wasn't like the Dailo, the big boss or whatever, but he wasn't just like the normal street hustler, but he was also someone who, he got his hands dirty. I'll just put it to you that way, right? And so, but he was also a Wing Chun practitioner. And in the 70s, he had a thing for full contact fighting. He liked to fight. Okay. And he actually, his brother, Leung Ting, when they wanted to start training up fighters to fight in the full contact contest, he sent his brother Leung Ting to a gym that is just a few doors down from the Leung Ting gym, and the building is still there. As a matter of fact, when we were in Hong Kong, it's on Nathan Road, I showed it to you. I said at the very top there is an old martial arts school. In the early 70s, Leung Ting went there. They were doing boxing there at the time. And what Leung Ting did is he went to see how they were training, because in traditional Chinese Kung Fu, you didn't really have like that kind of like stamina conditioning training. I mean, you had, in other styles, you know, you have your horse stance and you have your conditioning in terms of, you know, your forearm, you know, banging your forearms on stuff and developing your strength and your attributes. But when I say conditioning, I mean like cardiovascular fitness for sport fighting. All right. Because the word conditioning is so broad that if I say, oh, we didn't have conditioning in Wing Chun, there's a lot of conditioning and we don't, wouldn't, I mean, I'm not talking about that. I mean, actual like aerobic, anaerobic, and muscular endurance training for fighting contests, which is not arguably, it's not part of traditional Chinese martial arts. So Leung Ting went to this boxing gym and he looked at how the boxers were training, the type of bag work they did, the type of stamina work that they did. And he trained there so that he could learn how they did the stamina stuff and then apply that to Wing Chun so that they could train fighters using Wing Chun to have the stamina to fight in the ring, but then, you know, go in there and use Wing Chun technique. And he was kind of one of those kind of guinea pigs, I suppose, right?
Okay.
So anyway, this story I heard from the late Sifu Elman Leung, and I heard other pieces of this story from different sihengs of mine in Hong Kong. But like the main thrust of it I got from Sifu Elman Leung, the late Sifu Elman Leung, who is, in my opinion, not one really prone to exaggeration, and some little corroborating details I got from different sihengs in Hong Kong. So the story was that Leung Ting was in a fight, in a ring fight. There were a lot of people there. It's in a standard boxing ring. They wore the helmet with the face cage, a chest protector, and small gloves.
All right.
And that was it. it was full contact, punch, kick, elbow, knee. You could hit the guy on the ground. There was no real wrestling or ground fighting. Like, if they clinched for too long, they would be split apart. But you could pop a dude on the ground kind of thing, right? So these were pretty violent contests. And Leung Ting had a pretty contentious fight with a Choi Lei Fut guy. I don't know the exact thing that happened, but supposedly it's within the first round. Leung Ting goes in and he just starts putting the heat on this Choi Lei Fut guy, stepping in, chain punches, smothering him, being super aggressive. They were either split apart by the referee or the bell rang for the first round. Something like that. Something that they were otherwise supposed to be split apart.
All right.
And the story is, and again, I'm telling you a second, third-hand story, all right? So if anyone out there actually was there and knows better,
chime in.
I'm more than happy. So I'm not saying, like, because people get upset, like, that wasn't even a piece of protein in 1974, all right? So take it easy, all right? So anyway, they're supposed to be split apart, and the Choi Lei Fut guy sucker punches Leung Ting as they break, hits him off the break or kicks him while something happened. And Leung Ting grabbed the guy by the face cage, which is a straight gangster. It's like, okay, we're not like, because the gloves were like mitten style, but the thumbs were there. So apparently he just grabbed the guy by the face cage and pulled him down and cracked him with a downward elbow on his back. And pretty severely injured the guy, and the fight had to stop. And the audience starts booing. And they start booing Leung Ting because, even though maybe he was retaliating, but he like jacked up this dude. So anyway, and so the story was, and this I heard from Sifu Elman Leung Ting was such a gangster. He gave zero shits. He walks out of the ring towards the locker room. Everyone's booing, throwing stuff at him. He just walks through like fearless. Like he doesn't care. Like whatever. He just walks in, right? So the next day, or maybe a day, sometime very, very shortly after this fight happened, the school, the Choi Lei Fut school that guy belonged to, they showed up to the Leung Ting gym. And they were outside the gym there on Nathan Road, because it's been that same gym all along. So you've been there before, right? Where the Nathan Road kind of bends into Gascoigne Road, right? And there were a bunch of these Choi Lei Fut dudes on the street, like a whole
protest.
Yeah, but like a whole army of them. Wow. And they wanted blood, right? Because they felt that they had been, fouled by Leung Ting's brother or something like that, right? And Leung Ting was in the gym teaching and kind of looks out and sees that there's all these people there, right? And so I believe it was the headmaster of that school walks, or maybe let's say it's the Dai Sihing or someone important, someone who can represent that school. Again, I don't know the details. That's why I'm very cautious, right? Someone who represents that school. We'll say it's the head Sifu, or we'll just say it's the head Sihing. Walks in and sees Leung Ting and is like, we're here to, get revenge for the honor of the, our fallen brother or whatever, right? And they want to fight. And Leung Ting is he's very slick in these kind of, at least he used to be very slick in these kind of situations. So he says, okay, but here's the thing. We got to get all you guys off the street because the police are someone's going to call the police. And then, because it's literally a mob outside of his school, right? Wow. So Leung Ting said this. He said, we do it this way. And and when Sifu Elman told me this, it was like, it makes it, because I had heard Sifu Leung Ting tell me similar things before. This is the Leung Ting playbook. You get 5 of your best guys, and we get the 5 of our best guys, and then we'll have them fight, and the group that wins the most out of 5 is the winner. And that actually makes a lot more sense, because look, no matter how good you are at fighting, you could always slip on a banana peel and you got knocked out. So your school sucks. Yeah. But he was always like a bit of a gambling man, right? He's like, all right, you get 5 of your guys, we get 5 of ours. Right. They fight, and then the majority wins. See what happens. Right? That way that allows you to maybe, you have a loss in there. Okay, it's not a big deal because it's overall, right? And they kind of mulled it over, and I believe the Choi Lei Fut instructor kind of asked the rest of the people to disperse, and they were picking who they were going to bring to fight. And while this is going on, and Elman Leung was in the school at that time. That's why he told me the story. He said he was there that day. He said Leung Ting shows up. And at this time, he was about 18, 19 years old, and he was smoking a cigar. And it was like a very funny detail. Like this 18, 19-year-old try, he comes down Nathan Road, he's smoking a cigar.
Right.
And he sees all these people in front of his brother's school. And he realizes something is up. Extinguishes his cigar, walks right into Leung Ting's school and sees these Charlie Futt guys there and the instructor. And says, you guys are here from the Charlie Futt school, from whatever the school is of the guy that he beat. And they're like, yeah, we want to have a fight. And then Leung Ting looks at the guy who is either the sifu of the school or he is the head guy or whatever. And then they say, yeah, we're going to get 5-hour guys, 5-fighter guys. He goes, no, how about you just fight me right now? We settle this and you guys get out of here.
Yes.
That is gangster.
Yes.
That is gangster. And the guy did not want to do that because I think he saw something in Leung Ting's face, right? First of all, you have to imagine Leung Ting, again, walked through another crowd of hostiles. That whole school knew who he was. They're on the street.
Right.
He walks right through them, smoking a cigar, giving 0 Fs, and walks in and is like, nah, forget this 5-on-5 thing. How about we just fight right now and then you get out of here? And they dispersed, and that was the end of that story. That was the end of that I'm not fighting, right? It's crazy, right? Absolutely crazy.
They didn't do the 5-on-5.
Yeah, that's the art of fighting without fight. Well, you meant they were just so in, because you have to imagine the balls of a 19-year-old kid to walk in and say that and go to someone who's clearly more senior to him in the martial arts world and be like, nah, we just fight right now, and you get out of here.
Shut him down.
All right, it's like that's street life.
It's the art of the shut him
Right.
down. Man.
So, Leung Ting was a very interesting cat. I always wish that he was one of these guys that when I was coming up and going to Hong Kong, I would always hear stories about him. And then I would ask people hey, did you ever meet him? Ask my Seabach about him and stuff. And you get little stories here and there and you realize this dude was crazy, right? I really wish I had the chance to meet him because I think that there's a lot more he could have said. Now, I'm not going to say who, but in the 70s, there's a famous Wing Chun guy in Hong Kong within the Yip Man lineage, all right? And one of this guy's favorite pastimes was to talk shit about Leung Ting, all right? Which is, to be fair, a favorite pastime of many people, all right? Especially in the 70s, Leung Ting's school was so much bigger than everyone else's, and that upset a lot of people, right? Because if Leung Ting's Wing Chun is so bad, why does he have so many students, right? They just couldn't understand it. And so Leung Ting hears that this famous Wing Chun sifu said some shit about his brother. And he got really upset about it. And he showed up to this Wing Chun sifu school in the middle of his class with a bottle.
With a bottle.
And in the middle of class, walks in while all the students are there while the class is going on, breaks the bottle on the wall, and holds it up to the sifu and says, if you keep talking shit about my brother, I'm going to cut your throat in front of all your students. And walks out. All right? And I heard that story from 2 different people. Wow. Oddly enough, I heard it once from one of my students, one of my Chinese students, who learned Wing Chun years before they learned from me. They heard that story from their sifu. And then I heard that one again in Hong Kong, so pretty wild. And that was kind of Leung Ting. Now, my last Leung Ting story was this. Now, there's another sifu who was around the same time in Hong Kong, Tam Hung Fan. Mm-hmm. Tam Hung Fan was another guy who learned from sifu Leung Ting, and I'll talk about him in a moment. Flash forward in the 90s, Tam Hung Fan left Leung Ting's organization, or he was forced to leave, or whatever. It's not entirely clear. Maybe in the late 80s already, I think. And he opened his own school about 4 streets down from Leung Ting's school on Reclamation Street, very close or whatever. And Leung Ting was not too thrilled about this. And so sends his brother, Leung Ting, to go over there and rattle Tam Hung Fan's cage because, that's kind of what Leung Ting does, right? But Leung Ting respected Tam Hung Fan a lot because they had come up together in the 70s, right? And just went over there and told him, like, you made my brother really upset, and he wants me to come and basically smash your school, but I'm not going to do it. Okay. And it's interesting because it shows that, Sifu Leung Ting is a bit like our former president in requiring undying loyalty from everyone around him, but he doesn't always reciprocate. And even with his younger brother, who was probably one of the most loyal people to him ever, like, you know, walking into that other Wing Chun Sifu school and threatening him for talking shit about Leung Ting and you know, fighting, you know, wanting to fight the Charlie Fuck guy or whatever. But even he, at some point, was like, nah, I can't do this, right? So, interesting, right? So, anyway, Tam Hung Fan. So, kind of my next story, Tam Hung Fan is a very interesting character. He also passed away a few years ago. Tam Hung Fan started Wing Chun a little bit later in life. You know, when you think of people who got a name for themselves in martial arts, usually you think about them having started when they were younger, right? Tam Hung Fan didn't start Wing Chun, I believe, until he was already in his 40s.
Twilight years.
Yeah, twilight years.
Hey,
maybe.
Hey, calm down.
Careful, Mikey Deane is in here, all right? He gets a little sensitive about that kind of stuff, right? So Tam Hung Fan started a little bit later, like in his 40s. And the story was he went to Sifu Yip Man in Mongkok and asked Sifu Yip Man to accept him as a student. But at that time, that was shortly before Grandmaster Yip Man passed away. And Grandmaster Yip Man, you know, wasn't doing very, you know, was sick. He's kind of winding down in life. And he politely refused teaching Tam Hung Fan, but then told Tam Hung Fan that he should go and learn from Leung Ting. And that's how Tam Hung Fan started learning, or why he started learning from Leung Ting, because Yip Man told him no, and then Yip Man suggested that he learn from Leung Ting instead. So that's how he started. And even though he started at a slightly advanced age, he was a psychopath when it came to training. Because Elman Leung was there at that time, and he said, you know, every time he would come to class, you know, he'd like warm up, he'd hit the wall bag 1,000 times, and then he'd do his training. And he said he was so violent in Chi Sao training, you couldn't actually really practice with him. Like you couldn't actually train exercises with him. It was always on. And then after class, he would hit it for another 2,000, 3,000. And when you see his knuckles, you know, he had like barnacles growing out of his hands.
Okay.
And he was just really like, almost like he was making up for lost time and training like an absolute maniac. Tam Hung Fan eventually became one of the trainers for the Leung Ting gym in the 70s. And he was one of the guys who trained up the fighters to go into the contests, right? Which is also why I think he probably was one of the guys who helped Leung Tun prepare for some of those fights, which is probably part of the reason why Leung Tun could not go in there and rattle his school all those years later, because they had their own relationship independent of who or what had transpired between Leung Ting and either one of them, right? So, you know,
a lot of respect there, yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of respect there. So there's another story in the 70s. There were these two American sailors, all right? So I was like Navy officers.
All right.
That happened to be in Hong Kong. And they, you know, in the 70s, people knew about Bruce Lee and Kung Fu and stuff. And there they are in Hong Kong. And what do they want to do? They want to go and learn the martial art that Bruce Lee did, right? So they're looking, you know, and obviously way before the internet. So these two, you know, soldiers, presumably in uniform, walking around Nathan Road in the 70s, kind of knocking on any door they can. Just teach Kung Fu here, right? Like Fleet Week, right? But in Hong Kong, right? So these two American soldiers go to a Wing Chun school of a famous Wing Chun Sifu in Hong Kong. And they walk in, and these two American soldiers are, let's say, a little bit on the stout side, right? This Chinese Sifu looks at both of these guys and thinks like they're there to maybe start trouble because he doesn't speak English that well. And looks at them and probably thinks, to be fair, yeah, if I really need to, I could probably beat up these guys, but it's not going to be easy and it's not going to be pretty. Wow. And that Wing Chun Sifu, who did not like Leung Ting, decided that instead of teaching these guys, he would send them to the Leung Ting gym under the impression that those guys are going there just looking for a challenge fight.
Yeah.
So he said, oh, no, like, I'm too old, or whatever the story was. You need to go to the Leung Ting gym there. Those guys are fighters. You can fight with them. But he did it as a setup because he wanted those guys to go in there and to cause trouble in the Leung Ting gym. So those guys left. And they went down the road to the Leung Ting gym. And they walk in there, and on that day, Tam Hung Fan was teaching. Okay, Leung Ting was not there. I would presume maybe he was teaching in Europe
somewhere.
already, something
Yeah.
like that, right? And Tam Hung Fan speaks about as much English as you speak Cantonese. All right, maybe less. Okay, and he sees these two, and Tam Hung Fan is shorter than me. All right, and older guy, right? Tam Hung Fan sees these two American soldiers, and kind of looks up at them, and they come in, and because they cannot really communicate, they start pointing to Leung Ting's photo on the wall, like that, and like kind of motioning like about punching and kicking. So Tam Hung Fan reads this as a challenge. Even though, to be totally fair, they might just be like, oh, we want to learn from that guy, or we want to see this. It's not entirely clear. All right, did the other guy send them there for a fight? Did he just not want to teach them and pass them along? Or, what were the intentions and what was... this is impossible, all right? Yes.
The other guy probably gave him a card, was like, this is my school, but you go take this card to this school and show him this card.
Yeah, who knows? But the problem is...
And he probably thought he was coming from that school.
Maybe. Yeah, you're right. It could have been a setup, and it also could have been a lot more innocent than that, right? You always have to be careful because... especially with people who are not around anymore. I mean, like, who knows what the story is, right? This is all speculation on top of speculation, right? So anyway, Tam Hung Fan sees these two American guys coming in, seeming like they want to challenge the school or Leung Ting or pointing to the photo or whatever it is. And his eyes kind of turn red, all right? And then he kind of stands there and he kind of motions like, come on. Like, you want, like, come on, I'll show you. And a story I got from one of my scenes in Hong Kong was that one of the students who was there was a reporter who had a camera. And he wanted to take a photo of this, like just, get some photographic evidence of what was going on. While that student was walking up, because it's not like now you have cameras on your phones, right? While that student was walking over to his bag to go get the camera, when he turns around, Tam Hung Fan already has the American guy on the ground. He got the guy on the ground and punched him a couple times like this. All right? And then, hit the guy and then either he did a similar thing to the other guy or the other guy just stood I don't know those details, right? Did he just beat up one guy? Did he beat up both? Right. Did he beat up one and the other guy was like, "Oh man, Jesus, what's going on?" So I can't speculate on those details because I don't know. And they were like afterwards, they were like, oh, can we learn here? Can we learn here? It's like the rare time that a challenge fight turns into a prospective student, right? I mean, I know people think that that's the fantasy of the martial arts, but that's not actually what happens, right? When people come to challenge your school, as we'll see a little bit later in a video,
get the lawyer.
You beat that dude up. He doesn't necessarily go, where do I sign? Okay, he just goes, oh, you're a douchebag and leaves, all right? I mean, but anyway, this was one of and the guys wanted to join, but Tam Hung Fan sent them on their way. At sometime later, Leung Ting returns either from Europe or from wherever the hell he was, and Tam Hung Fan tells him what had transpired, and and says, yeah, these guys came in and it looks like they want to challenge you. So I beat the guy up, and then afterwards they were begging to join, but I sent those guys away. And in typical Sifu Leung Ting fashion, all right, you no matter how you handle a situation, Sifu Leung Ting will always tell you how you did it wrong. Literally doesn't matter. I remember one time, I told you the story, I got jumped by two guys in Midtown. Oh. All right?
Okay.
And I punched both those dudes and I rescued myself, right? Those dudes grabbed me and I punched you. I sent them an email that night. He told me everything I did wrong in that fight. You should have done this. You should have done that. Right. You should have done this. And I was like, oh, goodness. Oh, man, I was waiting for a little bit of a pat on the back. And we did this wrong. You did this wrong. It's so stupid, right? Yeah. So that is Sifu Leung Ting's character. Literally doesn't mean you can say, like, hey, my Kung Fu school makes $1 million a month. And he'd be like, you idiot, you should be doing something else if you're making that much. Like, he'll always tell you you're wrong. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how right you are, he'll tell you
$2 million.
Yeah, exactly, right? What? And so he scolds Tam Hung Fan and says, you should have let them join the school. Because since you beat, these guys would be your most loyal students because you convinced them. And then apparently, and I don't know whether it's true or not, those two American soldiers went over to Japan. And somehow they later got hooked up or linked up with William Zhang. And then started learning from William Zhang. And in Sifu Leung Ting's weird mind, he believes that that was the beginning of the beef between him and William Cheung, which, first of all, makes zero sense because those guys went to William Cheung maybe because the Leung Ting guys didn't take them, not because of any animosity towards William Cheung or Leung Ting or vice versa. So like, Leung Ting creates these weird narratives in his head about why certain things happen. So my problem with William Cheung is actually Tam Hung Fan's fault. But the real origin between that beef happened later in the 80s. It has nothing to do with that, all right? But like in his mind, like Tam Hung Fan not accepting these two American guys and telling them to get lost, and then they happen to go to Japan at some point and happen to later learn from William Cheung, that somehow all of this could have been foreseen by Tam Hung Fan, and somehow that's the obvious reason why there was a beef between Leung Ting and William Cheung, right? So he beat the dude up and still got blamed. Wow. All right? Typical thing with Leung Ting, right? And so, which kind of, I guess, brings me to the next thing. The problem is, in martial arts, there's always this fairy tale. Because it has happened before, but I will tell you, it doesn't happen that often. The idea that someone comes to the martial arts school to challenge the school, they are then defeated by the Sifu or the representative of the school, and then they are swayed to join that school. Now, I'll tell you, certainly there are times when that's happened, all right? But it's kind of like, it's like on a graph. You have to have someone who is like the challenger, has to be confident enough in what they learned before to want to challenge another Sifu or school or style.
Right.
But also humble enough to completely change what they're learning when they lose.
Yes.
The Venn diagram of the person who has enough of an ego to challenge a martial arts school, but is humble enough to completely change his style when he loses, this is a very narrow overlapping band. Yeah. All right, I know that from martial art movies,
it's
not true.
Martial art movie.
Yeah, no, it's not true. This guy came into the school, my Sifu slapped him around, and then the guy joined. Look, all right. We've also had people who came here for intro lessons. During the intro lesson, they try something. My instructor throws them down and oh man, where do I sign up? But that's not a challenge fight. That's just like, you wanted to try to throw. Our student Harry, right?
Yes,
big tall dude. He didn't want to do a private lesson. He didn't want to do an intro lesson with my assistants because for our audience there, I haven't taught an intro lesson in 10 years at my school. Right. But somebody was like, no, they insist on doing the intro lesson with me and even paid extra to do it with me. And he's a big tall dude. And midway through the intro lesson, he tries to grab me and tries to attack me, and I had to actually put him on the floor. And he's and then he joined.
Yes.
Okay?
That's very Harry.
And and then but the thing is, Harry's a unique guy, right?
Yeah.
But you run that simulation 10 other times with 10 different people, and you don't get 10 times the person joins after that. Mm-hmm. All right? Because again, where's the Venn diagram of the guy's got big enough of an ego to walk into a martial arts school and try to actually punch or kick the guy who's teaching him, and then when he gets punched or kicked, or shown that what he's doing is inferior, is humble enough to join. All right? So this tired trope of...
Like my man, Iron Sheik.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to make you humble, right?
Yeah.
I'll break your back and make you humble. So, yes, it's happened, but I would argue it doesn't happen that regularly. Okay? And so when you look at the tree of outcomes in a challenge fight, okay? The calculus is never on the side of the instructor. It never works out that way, okay? Because especially in a modern setting, all right? Someone comes into your school and they want to challenge you, either doing an intro lesson or they just want to outright fight you or whatever. Or they want to come into your class and stick hands with your students, and then they're suddenly your colleague now because you just let them join the class, right? And then you have to now represent your style against this person, okay? Which is a lot harder in a striking-based martial art than a grappling-based martial art. If it's a grappling-based martial art and I put you in a triangle choke and I say, okay, you going to tap or are we good?
Yeah.
All right? Or do I really have to choke you unconscious? All right, good. In a striking martial art, it's especially, let's say, Chi Sao, right? You want to have a Chi Sao challenge match, which is freaking ridiculous, all right? I put my hand in front of your face and I stop short because I don't want to smash your nose because you are a guest in my house. So pardon me for not wanting to break your nose. So I stop my hand here, but the fact that I stop my hand right in front of your nose also indicates that I could have actually hit you and smashed your nose. Do you, as the person trying to test me, recognize that restraint on my behalf? Or do you then, after I stop and hold it there and show you where I could have hit you, repay my kindness by time warping and giving me a left hook full power over the top? What is it? And then once that happens, we're not doing Chiu anymore. Now we're fighting. So we could have just said, let's fight.
Right.
But no, it's Chiu, or no, it's this, or whatever. So
friendly competition.
Yeah, it's bullshit. This is saying it's a friendly match in martial arts. What's it? You can have, look, you can have within the same style, playful exchanges that get a little heated, but you still shake it out at the end. You can occasionally have this with people outside of your school. If there's a modicum of rapport between you and this person coming in first, if there's not, friendly,
Wow.
Look, like what do they say? You don't play boxing.
No.
All right? You don't play fighting. So are we training together or is this a really... You got to let me know. And the moment you use restraint only to be repaid with the other person getting pissed and then really hitting you, it's like, oh, so you're telling me I should have just smashed your face to begin with, all right? So the instructor is the only one who can lose in this situation. Because if the instructor shows restraint and the other person doesn't respect that, the instructor is vulnerable to getting hit because they didn't really hit the other person.
Yeah.
If the instructor shows restraint and doesn't hit the other person says, oh, that guy doesn't have any power, that guy didn't do anything, even though the hand is literally right in front of their face. The other person can build up the narrative any way they want. And if the instructor smashes the face of the other guy because they don't want to deal with any of that hot nonsense, the other guy's going to go, oh, God, oh, my nose is broke. Oh, where do I sign up? Okay? No, that guy's going to get pissed and you're in an all-out fight, or that guy's going to leave with his tail between his legs and sue you, or you will never see him again. So you go easy, you can lose face and you can be sucker punched. You go hard on the guy calls you a douchebag and leaves with a broken nose, and maybe you get a lawyer coming at you in a month from then, right? Because you walk into my school and I punch you in the face. All right, like who's the one that's gonna lose? Me. It's my house. It's my building, right? So like you have no good outcome there. And let's say you brutalize this guy, and then he joins. That's not going to end there. That person is usually going to keep testing you literally every time when you're there, you have paying students, they want to learn. You're teaching them. You're always going to have an open debate and fight session with this guy because he cannot be convinced unless you physically harm this person. I don't know if this really works unless you smash my face. So you really want to have the type of person in your school that you have to continually smash their face for them to go, okay, the thing you're showing me is worth practicing.
Yeah.
Pretty sure there are some specialist websites that you can pay money for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh,
So you're
please,
pretty sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, please smash me in the face. I really like it, seafood.
Right. And also it's like, and let's say the Sivu decides like, oh, this guy's trying to fight me, and I'm not going to smash this guy with chain punches and an elbow. I'm going to put him in a headlock and throw him on the ground. All right? Like, I can't match this guy with Wing Chun. Maybe I don't feel like chain punching the guy, so you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put him in a headlock and put him down there. And you hold him in a headlock and you slap him around and say, hey, are we done? Are we done? And then the guy leaves, oh, he didn't even use Wing Chun on me. Well, isn't it more insulting that he just put you in a schoolyard headlock and held you on the ground than he had to brutalize you with fists? Right?
It reminds me of something I've seen.
The problem is, but what I'm trying to illustrate is there's no good outcome for the instructor. You smash him, he leaves angry and sues you or whatever. You don't smash him, you're vulnerable yourself to getting hurt. All right? Or not having a performance that makes that guy want to join. Okay? You smash him and he joins, you have a meathead in your school now that you're going to have to constantly smash every time you want to give him a correction on bong sao. All right? Or you decide you're going to play around with this kid and put him in a headlock and hold him down, and he goes, oh, you didn't even use Wing Chun to beat me up. Oh, so the Wing Chun guy didn't even need to use the style he's good at to beat you up. Do you not understand the irony of being upset with that? The guy trains Wing Chun his whole life to only need to put you in a headlock.
Yeah.
All right? They're like, can we maybe look at this narrative a little bit differently? All right? And not say, oh, that guy's Wing Chun sucks. How about say, you suck so bad the guy doesn't need Wing Chun against you, right?
So how do you win as an instructor?
So you don't. I'm saying you literally don't. All right? Because
like a tight situation.
Well, the problem is human beings, we all suffer from this. It's called, in game theory, they call it resulting, where you judge your decision-making process based solely on the results. But the truth is that that's actually not although it seems to make sense on the surface, it's not accurate. Because you can make all the right decisions given all the information you have, and it still ends up being wrong. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't have made that decision. Given everything you know about what happens when a traffic light is green, you would drive through it. That's based on what you understand and what you understand about how traffic flows. So you drive through that green light and you're cautious, right? But you can also drive through that green light and somebody comes crashing through and kills you. So that's a potential outcome.
Okay.
So do not cross green lights anymore.
Damn.
You see what I mean? So the problem is then resulting is basically this. They call it motivated reasoning, where you always give yourself a narrative where in your mind you're always the good guy. Everyone in your mind you're always the good guy, unless you're suffering from massive depression or something, right?
Okay.
And it works like this. Every decision you've made that has worked out for you, your mind rationalizes it like this. I made that decision and it worked out. And it worked out because of your mind always picks one of two things. It worked out because of my awesome skills and knowledge. I had the skills and knowledge. I made the right decision and it ended up working out for me. Okay? Or sometimes you go, maybe I got lucky.
Okay.
Okay? But usually we tend to think, well, it's because I'm so good. That's why I made the right decision.
Damn.
But if you made a decision and it ended up being not in your favor, even if the decision-making process was legit, we almost always chalk it up to bad luck or circumstance. You never say, I used all my skills and my smarts and my intelligence and I came up short. So we usually blame our success on our skills and blame our failures on luck.
Damn. And we can't pull
bad luck.
Strange
bad
either.
luck, that is.
Can't
okay?
pull a Doctor Strange and see all the possible
the infinite.
outcomes.
Yes. But you see, so it's like if you mess up or something doesn't work out, you think, circumstance or bad luck. If something works out for you, you go, damn, I'm good. Right? But here's the thing. It works almost the opposite for other people. When people see someone else who's successful, let's say you work in an office and the person is really successful, you go, it's because they're kissing the boss's ass or whatever. You subscribe their good luck and good fortune, or their good fortune to luck and chance. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, not skill. Never that way.
Never
it's almost
skill.
like the exact opposite of what you do with yourself, right? So this is one of the things that a lot of human beings have on the hard drive and how we rationalize. It's called motivated reasoning, where you give yourself a narrative for why something did or didn't work out, and that might have nothing to do with the actual truth. So if you lose a fight to someone, you go in their school, they beat you up, he got lucky.
Yeah, lucky punch.
It wasn't that style was better. He got lucky. And you leave and you go, yeah, screw that guy. He just got a lucky punch in on me. All right? People always have motivated reasoning. All right? And not to in Wing Chun in the past, there have been challenged fights between the different Wing Chun schools, right? Some guy came in and challenged the other guy, right? You can look into the history and see what happens after a challenge fight. Does the Sifu who loses lose all their students in their school? No, rarely, ever. Rarely, ever. All right? You know what usually happens? The students of the Sifu that lost, through motivated reasoning, they lost because the other guy cheated, got lucky. It goes back to circumstance. All right? And then they feel that their leader, the Sifu that lost, was unfairly attacked and is the victim of an outside conspiracy. So what ends up happening is they double down and become even more ardent followers of that. It happens everywhere. It happens in politics. It happens in martial arts.
Yeah.
It's never like, oh, that guy lost, and now that guy from today to tomorrow has no more students. It never happens that way.
Damn.
So when we look at the tree of possible outcomes for challenge fights, how does any of that ever solve anything? You rarely get a student or a good student out of it, and the narrative afterwards is never black and white in terms of what actually happened.
Never.
So what's the point? If you invite that stuff into your school, like, look, you can have someone come in their intro lesson and say, okay, here's how we do things. And someone goes, oh, well, what about this? And you can answer those questions and you can show them, right? But the moment that turns into a fight, okay, yeah, I mean, hey, if you're here to learn from me and you don't want to learn this, you can leave, all right? But if I have to physically assault you to convince you of a way of punching, I'm not sure I want to have you here every day because you seem like kind of a meathead, all right? So you have that, right? So having said that, recently, another school martial art fight. This time it involves someone that I know personally.
Okay.
So Sifu Rasan is a practitioner of the William Cheung line of Wing Chun. Now, normally the William Cheung line and the Leung Ting line, like, we're McBeefies against each other, right? But
like McDonald's and Burger King.
Yeah, I get along fine with the William Cheung guys. As a matter of fact, some of them on the weekend, they even rent my space for a couple hours to teach their students here, right? I'm probably the only Leung Ting gym that opens my school, a couple hours to the William Cheung guys to rent from me, right? So,
kudos to you, man.
Well, it's kind of funny. Like, I mean, I love those guys to death, but on the funny side of things, I'm the only Leung Ting guy who's ever made money off of William Cheung.
Okay.
And it also reminds me of another funny story. Another instructor in the IWTA in the U.S., a guy from Texas, he's a very conservative guy, right? And he tried to brag to Sifu Leung Ting. Remember how I told you Sifu Leung Ting will always tell you you're wrong no matter what decision you make? Yeah. Well, occasionally, Sifu Leung Ting is actually right when he tells you you're wrong.
Okay.
Here's one of those examples. This Texas Sifu, it was when the Buji book, Sifu Leung Ting's Buji book just came out.
Yeah.
And he had the book there in his school. He was selling it to his students and stuff like that. A Wing Chun instructor from another line came into his school. Actually, he was a former WT guy, but that guy broke away. And he was also teaching in the same town. He walks into this guy's school and wants to buy the new Buji book from his former Sifu Leung Ting. He wants to buy Sifu Leung Ting's Buji book. And this Texas instructor didn't want to sell it to him because, well, it's the Buji form and you left before you were qualified to learn it and didn't want to sell him the book.
Oh.
Which, first of all, is stupid because Leung Ting literally published a book, which means anyone can buy it.
Anyone can buy it.
But here's the funny thing. He told Sifu Leung Ting this as a point of pride. As I was there, he goes, well, Sifu, so-and-so walked into my school and wanted to buy the Buji book, and I wouldn't sell it to him because that guy's a rebel, and why do I want him to see the Buji form and all that kind of stuff, right? And Sifu Leung Ting looked at him and he goes, you idiot. You lost the chance to make a sale. And then he said the funniest thing.
Yes.
If William Cheung walks into my school and wants to buy 1,000 books, I will sell him 1,000 books. I don't care who he is. Why would you not sell one book to this guy? Right? And I just thought, like, all beef aside, that was pretty funny.
Yes.
Because, like, it's true. You put a book, okay, the guy, you want to buy my book? You don't like my face and you want to buy my book? I'll sign it for you.
Yeah.
I'll sign it for you.
Sign it.
Okay? I mean, crazy, right? And it was just so funny to see the look on this instructor's face just like kind of drop where he thought Sifu Leung Ting was going to be like, oh, good boy for being so loyal. He was like, you idiot. You just sold the book, you moron.
You lost a sale.
You lost the sale, right?
Wow.
I just felt like, wow, that was some really gangster stuff right there. I thought that was cool. So anyway, I'll give a quick background on this because this video was on YouTube recently and I just checked it today because I wanted to show it. Mm-hmm. And the original video is now off YouTube, so I don't know if they took it off, but I saw someone else reposted it, but it's not the whole video, it's just kind of the fight, okay? So Sifu Rasan is from the New York area, and every once in a while he's actually here at City Wing Chun, like when they'll rent my space for a seminar.
Where's he from in New York?
I think Brooklyn, yeah.
Yes,
and
of course,
and so which you can tell in the video that he's definitely from Brooklyn, right? But he's moved out to L.A. since, so he teaches Wing Chun out there. And from what I could tell, he teaches Wing Chun
boy.
like in his
Moved to
backyard
LA,
from his home, right? So he teaches there in his backyard, you know. My wife was watching the video. I showed it to her, and they have like wooden dummies and stuff in the backyard, and she's like, what do they do like when it rains? And I'm like, you know, it never rains in Southern California,
Oh,
right?
yes.
I'm like, I'm sure they cover it up, right? But anyway, she was like, for her, it's like, wow, they have wooden dummies outside. That's crazy. I'm like, yeah, well, it's also Southern California, right? So anyway, Sifu Rasan is teaching in his backyard. He's doing some kind of drill where he's doing a spinning kick. But he's doing the spinning kick as the trainer, you know, the feeder, the secondary of the exercise, so that the student, the bad guy, right? So that the student can learn how to defend it. He's not doing a spinning kick because it's part of Wing Chun. Well, there's a Jeet Kune Do guy at the school there that day. I use Jeet Kune Do guy really lightly because I know a lot of Jeet Kune Do people and I have a lot of respect for them. And this guy, you know, I don't know who the hell this guy is. And
Probably a Jeet Kune Do guy that just rang the bell here.
Yeah, I mean, who knows who this guy is, right? But he's like, oh, your groin is open when you do that. He's saying that to Sifu Rasan, and it's very clear to the dumbest idiot watching this class that Sifu Rasan is playing the bad guy and he's setting up the drill for the student to learn the defense. He's not doing the spinning kicks as part of Wing Chun. This Jeet Kune Do guy, he doesn't seem to understand the role of like trainer and, you know, feeder and trainee or something like that, right? It's not sparring, it's a drill. And then he starts getting all like, yeah, well, you know, like if you spin, you lose this and you do that. And then Sifu Rasan is extremely patient. He's got the patience of an angel until he didn't anymore. And so he's like, okay, well, you know, come here and show me what you want to show me, right? And so the guy's standing there, and look, for me, it's like, never trust the guy who claims to be a martial artist who shows up to a martial arts school wearing acid wash jeans and a Charlie Brown striped shirt. Okay?
Charlie Brown stripes at the...
Yeah, clearly this guy is a serious martial artist because he came in martial arts gear. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I'm joking. He came dressed like a skater from the late 80s, all right?
Right.
So he's standing in front of Sifu Rasan, and he's like, you know, well, I could kick you here, and if you kick with that leg, I'll kick you like this or whatever. And Sifu Rasan is being very cool. He's like, okay, so if I do this, you do that or whatever. And then he goes, all right, you know, let's, well, I'll give you some kicks, and then you can kind of show me what you do or whatever. And then, you know, striped shirt boy is like, oh man, no, like he suddenly, no, he doesn't want to do that. He's like, oh, I'm really gonna kick you. He doesn't want to have any kind of exchange. He's like saying like, no, like I'm not gonna muck around and just like play fight. Like we do it for real or we don't do it at all. But he gets so aggro, right? But the weird thing is, you know, he later claims that this JKD guy claims that he was disrespected. But the thing is that he came to this guy's house. He came to Sifu Rasan's house to learn something. Why are you there? If not to learn something or to see something, you're really there to take the mic from the instructor and then give a TED talk on JKD, a straight lead sidekick or something like that. Like, it's not your show. I know maybe it's always your show wherever you are. It's just like I'm looking at this, I'm going, why are you here? If you are this guy you're a vessel of so much knowledge, why aren't you teaching somewhere? Why are you showing up to a Wing Chun class and having to debate the instructor for doing something? It makes no sense. Even if you disagree with the instructor, try it out, see if you like it. If you don't like it, you can leave. Mm-hmm. But you suddenly have to I don't understand what he thinks is going to happen. You walk into someone's house and you tell them that they're wrong and you think that everyone is going to be cool and open with that. Mm. There are people out there might be like, hey, man, great, fine. Like, they might be cool with that. But you're being very naive when you walk into someone else's house thinking that you're going to go in there and you're going to be the one that's going to give the lecture. Who the hell are you? Who the hell are you, acid wash jean dude? Right?
Oh my
so anyway, he's there and he's like doing like the kicks and stuff like that. And, and then like I said, Sifu Rasan's like, okay, well, maybe we could try. And then the guy all of a sudden gets aggro, right? And then Sifu Rasan's like, hey, young man, like, you need to like chill for a moment, right? Mm-hmm. And dude just gets like, and then he goes all like putting his head on Sifu Rasan's, like almost like kind of doing like kind of the white boy, like kind of rhino, antler headbutting kind of thing or whatever. And then, shortly before he said that, Sifu Rasan was like, hey man, give this guy some gloves. Let's just spar. So, which I thought was very, like, obviously it was already going off the rails.
Yeah.
Even at that like 11th hour moment, he's like, hey, give this guy gloves. Let's spar.
Yeah.
All right. Like, like it's going to be something, but let's at least keep it into some kind of exchange.
Okay.
Like something in a martial arts kind of way,
Civilized.
right? Civilized as much as that can be, right?
Damn.
And, homeboy puts his head there. And it was just, at that point, it's like, okay, you're basically assaulting him at this point. Wow. And then Sifu Rasan, slaps him one, and then they're fighting. And so let's take a look at that here real quick. All right. So here we go. All right. So you see this guy here. He's got his Charlie Brown vest on.
He got the
And there he is, bouncing around and showing like, yeah, man, look at how dynamic I am, right? And look how cool Sifu Rasan is being. He's like, all right. Yeah. You can still see he's got his hand ready though, just in case something's going on. I see like, he's got his hand ready, right? You can take the man out of Brooklyn, but you can't take Brooklyn out of the man right there, right? This guy's moving around, doing all this stuff, right? Yeah. Really good distance footwork. Yeah. Look at this. Okay. And then he's basically saying like, okay, well, I could kick you here. I could kick you there. I could do this. I could do that, right? So we'll scrub forward a little bit. And then, and then he kind of tries to tell Sifu Rasan in some way that like, this is wrong, can't do that or whatever. And then the whole thing basically escalates. All right. It goes from like being like kind of a weird, like, okay, so you're here teaching me, I'm teaching you, what's going on? See, there he goes. All right, man. So we'll go like this. Let's try it. All right. Like I'll come at you, you do your thing, whatever. And then suddenly, white boy Charlie Brown's like, nah, man, F that. Yo, man, I can't handle that. Yo, man, like getting all aggro white, but like, look at this, right? And he's like, hey, young man, and he's trying to like, Sifu Rasan is trying to like get this guy to calm down. Look, he starts taking his glove off, right?
Oh no.
And it's almost like he's kind of getting ready to drop the hammer, right? Then, white boy claims that he's being disrespected. It's like, you are in the guy's house and you are telling him he's wrong. How are you the one being disrespected, right?
Look at your man in the back on the wooden dummy.
Yeah, he's just chilling out there, right?
He's chilling like, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, also, like, it's not, that's a great place to pause it. It's not in this cut of the video, but shortly before, because this video only has, when he's there, they don't have, like, the pre-exchange. Uh-huh. The guy's like, okay, yeah, I'll show you. And then little striped shirt boy does a side kick on the bag, like, boom, like, oh, look at how awesome my side kick. It's like, whoa. Like, when people walk into your school, like you're showing them around for the first time, they just go up to the wooden dummy and start hitting it without like asking. That's why, or they kick the bag or something like that. You're like, did your mom not give you enough attention?
What's going on? Oh, hey.
So boom, and then he holds him, and starts punching him.
The blue chair, safe.
Yeah, controlling him there, controlling him. Now look at JKD boy's fake jujitsu. This guy saw a UFC once, and he's like, all right, I need to hug my legs somehow. Doesn't understand posture control or like, look at this. And he just gets turned around, is on the ground. And, Sifu Rasan is just kind of controlling him a little bit. But look, he's throwing his leg up there like he knows what he's doing. If he knew any jiu-jitsu, he would at least go for half guard here. He would try to go for posture. The guy, he doesn't know anything. He saw a UFC once. And then he gets up, and now look at this. Double fooks out control, and he pushes him. Boom, down, done.
Oh, into the
We're over,
toolbox.
we good. And then look, boom, he tries to sucker kick him like that, right? What is up with that? That was uncalled for, right? He is lucky. He truly tries to kick him in the head when he's down there. And you know what's crazy? Everything this boy did failed. And then he leaves and calls him a douchebag. I'm the douchebag? Wow. Crazy, right?
You see, I saw that video, and I gotta say that, like, that dude was lucky that he didn't have his ass wound.
Yes,
kicks. Like,
I have to say, like, look, and I know that
he got away lucky.
People are gonna comment, be like, "Oh, he's not doing like a chain punch and Paxao and this or that or whatever." Look, a fight is a fight, okay? A fight is a fight. And like that's how it works, right?
Fights are never pretty.
Fights are never pretty, and I also feel Sifu Rasan could have been, he could have gone way harder on this dude. Right? Plus, there were a bunch of other people there.
Use restraint at the end.
He was using restraint at the end, right? Plus, there were a bunch of other people there. Right? They could have all jumped on this dude or whatever, right? That man on the wooden dummy there, Like a Twizzler in his mouth, right? I mean, like the dude was lucky that he even walked out of there, right? Relatively intact. But like, look, and I'm not here to condone violence. I mean, there's a whole other side of this that I would say this kind of thing shouldn't happen. Like the way you teach regularly, you shouldn't give the mic to a clown like this and turn it into romper room.
When he walked off, you know where he walked to?
Where?
To the front desk to sign up.
To the front, yeah, of course.
That's where he went.
That's how these things always go.
like,
You get
yo.
your ass beat. You're like, oh, where can I sign up?
Where can I sign up?
If I were him, I'd sign up for some jujitsu classes,
Yo,
man.
that guy signed up.
His fake jujitsu there was kind of funny at the
I'd
end.
go straight back to some coffee house and have like soy latte.
Yeah, no kidding, right? Yeah, no kidding. Whatever hipster coffee house he would go to would definitely have an old typewriter in there. All right. So anyway, I thought that was crazy. I mean, like it is
When
what
did
it is.
that
Look,
happen?
People are gonna talk shit about both of them or whatever. But I mean, like, look, I think Sifu Rasan represented himself pretty well. A fight's a fight, and that dude left knowing, yeah, maybe not everything you do is the way it should be, right? And it's also kind of funny because what was that dude's like? Yeah, stand around here and I kick you and I can do that. And what happens the moment a fight starts? You get that clinch range right away. So you're either punching or you're controlling or you're clinching. So don't talk to me about, the distance, you're going to kick and move and keep me at distance. Or what. Once the fight is on, the fight is on. We're not bouncing around back and forth for 10 minutes, measuring the space and how does the guy react off my jab. If you fight, the fight starts and there you go. So you're either ready for it or you're not, right? And that's what happened.
Well, the guy hadn't done enough to earn the right to see his chi sao.
Yeah, exactly, right? Totally crazy. Do we have time for one more story?
I think we should have time. One minute, 1 hour, 10 minutes.
All right.
Let's do it.
I'm going to tell a story I struggled about talking about for a very long time. I didn't want to tell this story. This is the story of a wild fight that happened at City Wing Chun. Yes. Wild.
All right. Fight.
2014. I would say the wildest fight, but it didn't actually involve anyone from City Wing Chun.
No City Wing Chun students.
No City Wing Chun. Okay. So I will set the stage. It's 2014, and one of my Sibak Kung Fu uncles from Hong Kong was visiting New York. Okay? He was visiting New York.
Which one?
I'm not telling because I don't want anything. I said 2014. Dre. When I say a Sibak and I don't mention a name.
You don't want to mention a name.
There's a reason for that.
Wow.
All right? I don't want people to go back and go, wait, what year? What this? And then look at the photos and go, oh, wait, he must be talking about that. No, it's cool.
I think the mission of Who Asks Those Questions about the Wing Chun politics on YouTube has been solved.
That's right, yes. So
fake accounts?
Yes. So anyway, my Sibak is here from Hong Kong. He teaches a seminar at my school. He's kind of here for a couple of weeks. Teaches a seminar, we do some lessons, and while he's in New York, there's another Sibak of mine, Chinese Sibak, who lives, I'll say, in the greater New York area. All right? This Chinese Sibak of mine, all right, has been living in the States for a while now, okay? And my Hong Kong Sibak had not seen my other Sibak who lives in the States since the 70s. So while he was here visiting me from Hong Kong, he wanted to meet his other junior Kung Fu brother with whom he had not seen since the 70s. And, I am many things, and one of them is I'm a very hospitable host to my Sibaks who visit me from Hong Kong. So I arrange my Sibak to meet my other Sibak, and they have not seen each other since the 70s, right? So it's decided that we're going to go and eat at a fancy-dancy steakhouse right around the corner. And it was on a weekday. I remember that because...
Keen's or something like that?
Something like that, right? Okay. Stop asking for details. I got to keep this vague. And it wasn't Keen's, but it's Keen's for the story. Okay? So, me and the fake names, right? Sure, it was Keen's, all right? It was Keen's Steakhouse, all right?
Good steak.
So anyway, we go there, and I remember it was during the week because while I was having dinner with my two Sibaks, class was going on here in New York, right? So at our Manhattan headquarters. And so I go over there, we're eating, and it's me, my wife, and one of my Chinese students. And I bring my Sibak. He's there with, my other Sibak is there, his wife, and 2 of his students. Okay? So it's like a nice round table, and we're talking. It's mostly Cantonese, blah, 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 gossip going on. And we're eating steak, and it's good steak. All right? At the end, so the 2 students that are with my local Sibak, one of them, they're both Chinese. One of them has been with my New York area Sibak for a very long time.
Okay.
The other guy was a little weird. He had trained with my New York area Sibak for a little bit, but he was currently doing WT training with the EBMAS guys, the guys under Emin. Oh. And I thought that was a little strange because he's Chinese, and normally the Chinese understand the whole being loyal to your sifu. And it was like, this Chinese student has his Chinese sifu there, and he's telling me how he trains at this other WT school. Like, yeah, I train with my sifu, but I also trained over here, right? And I thought it was like a little strange.
Yeah.
It's not to throw shade on the EBMAS guy. I just thought it was strange from a Chinese cultural perspective. It's like in front of your sifu going like, yeah, I train with my sifu for a little bit, but I'm training with the EBMAS guys. And there you are for some reason. For some reason, they were still close enough that this guy still came to dinner with them, right?
Yeah.
So we're eating, and the guy who trained with my Sibak and at EBMAS, he's drinking. And he's drinking. And he gets the typical Asian flush red face from drinking, right? And towards the end of the dinner, I was like, hey, it was so great to get my Sibaks together. It was so nice to see you guys. And I'm getting ready to, head back to school. We're going to, class is probably winding down, close up, and then go home. Sifu Alex, do you think we could go to your school? Because we've never visited City Wing Chun before. And maybe, since my other Sibak is there from Hong Kong, my students can exchange some techniques at your school. And the moment I heard that, when like the record's playing, it goes, because the phrase exchange techniques. Wow. Look, I'm not a noob to Chinese martial arts. I know what that means, okay? It means anything from, we're going to have a polite discussion about the virtues of the different types of bong sao, to someone is leaving with their face punched in. So when you say exchange some techniques, it's completely vague. Wow. So I go, okay, there's the potential for some shit to happen tonight. So I call my school while I'm still at the steakhouse.
Yeah.
Because, at City Wing Chun, we have 2 floors. The class was in the upstairs floor. I called, and whoever was teaching that night, I don't remember who it was, I said, hey, move the class downstairs to the 4th floor. Because we're going to need to go up on the 5th floor, and we're going to need to have that space empty. Because the thing is, we have paying students coming to learn. And I don't want them to come in and they see there's like a bloody fist fight at the school, right? And I know like that people are like, oh yeah, well if you're ready to fight, I get all that stuff. But I have CEOs who train with me. I have moms who train with me. I don't want to have a bloody fist fight in front of paying people who are there to learn martial arts and are not there to be a tough person or something like that, right? So I say, clear the 5th floor. We come back. We go to the 5th floor. They come, they're taking photos of my school. They're looking around, all this kind of stuff. My Hong Kong Sibak is there with the 2 students of my other Sibak. And they start doing the Siunam Tao form in front of him. And I'm like, oh, okay, they're going to be chilling with the Sibaks over there. And that was great because I had my daughter Maria. She was very small at the time. Mm-hmm. And she was like 2 years old, And I also wanted to make sure that the students got out of there. So I'm up there, and I'm with my wife and with the kid and with my other students. And we're just kind of watching. I want to see, okay, what's going on. My Sibak is giving them some corrections on their Siunam Tao form. So I'm like, okay, it's going to be one of those, like, oh, show me how you do. Show me your Tan Sao, I'll show you mine. Okay. And and so I'm like, okay, this is fine, right?
Exchange of techniques.
And then suddenly the 2 students, now mind you, in theory, they are both students of my New York area Sibak. Although one of them is also training with EBMAS, but they're like Kung Fu brothers, like you and Mikey Deane or something like that, right? They start doing, they're like, oh, let's do some Pun Sao, all right? And I'm like, oh, this could get interesting. They start doing punsao by the big heavy bag at the end of the gym, right? And remind you, remember I told you one of them was the one that was also training with the EBMAS guys. He was a little drunk.
Yeah.
And he
Flush
was
face.
wearing a nice suit. I'll always remember that. He had a very nice suit on, custom cut. He took his jacket off, and he took his tie off, and he rolled up his sleeves, but he still had like the white button shirt. He was and like the shoes and everything. The other guy was just wearing like normal jeans and sneakers or something
Just
like that.
whatever
Right?
gear.
It was very weird.
Yeah.
They start doing punsao, and the one who trained, the one who was drunk, in the middle of punsao, just cracks the other one with a left hook. Like, he doesn't attack with a paksao punch. He doesn't do any kind of chisao stuff. They just do punsao, and he goes, boom, and decks the other guy, like, not lightly. The other guy, and I shit thee not, his head whips around like this, and then suddenly the drunk guy in the suit grabs his shirt with his fist, holds onto the cloth, and starts punching him with the other hand. So here's the thing, all right? It's not I'm watching this and going, what the hell is going on? Because, look, we train Hong Kong style chisao sparring, and it can get kind of violent, right? Gosao and Latsao can get pretty intense, but at least you understand, like, okay, use some controlled force, and there's also something like, hey, we're still training together. And if you crack me one by accident, I don't get upset because it's part of training. But no one is grabbing the other one's shirt in the middle of chisao sparring and repeatedly decking them like Captain America hitting Iron Man at the end of Civil War.
Wow.
Right? And I'm watching this, and like I'm going, what the hell is going on? Because they're not doing chisao. And the other guy is like holding on to him, and he's fighting back, and they're throwing punches. The drunk guy throws the other guy in the ground. Dre, I shit thee not. He kicks him in the ribs on the floor like soccer kick. What? Boom! And I'm going...
With the shoes.
With the shoes. And the thing is, they are supposed to be exchanging...
The hard toes.
They're supposed to be exchanging chisao in front of my two C-backs, right? And then he gets up and he's hitting them and he cracks him with an elbow. And then they inexplicably stop. And they go back to punsao. as if like, okay, that was chisao exchange number one. They go back to punsao, and then the other states just start decking each other. Swings, hooks, punches, kick. He slammed him into the... And he was like trying to slam him into the wooden dummy on purpose.
Whoa.
And it's like the whole dinner time, they were talking and chatting like they were friends. And now suddenly... the dude is attacking him like he caught him sleeping with his wife, okay? No, and I'm not saying that to exaggerate. It was that level of anger and intensity. Whoa. And so the other dude who wasn't drunk, I think he was probably better in chisao, but he was blindsided, like what the hell's going on? And he's just fighting to survive, but then goes back and does it again, as if somehow, we still need to fight and save face. And I'm just going like, what's going on?
What?
So
happened?
he gets a bloody nose.
Yeah.
The non-drunk one. Oh, wait, we have to stop. Goes into my bathroom, has to start cleaning out his nose, the tissue, clean and wash and everything, whatever. Then they're on this end of the school up there, right? He gets out, and without saying a word, they go and link up and do punsao again. As if like
dude
somehow
comes out the bathroom.
He
and
comes out the
touch
bathroom,
hands
wipe,
again.
yeah. And Dre, it's difficult for me to explain to the audience because maybe the audience is thinking like, oh, they're just doing some rough cheese. No. They were fighting. The fight that we just showed between the Rasan and that guy,
Yeah.
it was way more brutal than that. That was a lot more civilized than what these two guys were doing in my school. Wow. And then they come out. The one guy had like a beaded necklace, and he rips the bead. There were beads all over the floor.
Beads are flying.
And then I'll never forget because it was one of the craziest things I had seen in my life. The drunk guy grabs him again by his shirt. The other guy cocks his hand back like John Wayne.
Oh, shit.
Punches him full power square in the nose.
Where he was just finishing wiping
When he
off.
just finished, but it's kind of like, Dre, I have to reiterate, this was not violent chisao gone a little wild. This was not violent gosao gone a little bit rowdy. This was just like, I'm going to murder you because you killed my dog, All right? Like, and it went from 0 to this right away. Like, they were friends the whole night. So he grabs the non-drunk guy, punches him in the nose. And I remember because I saw it right from behind the guy who's punching the other guy. Yeah. And I'll never forget it. He hits the guy square in the nose. And he wasn't bleeding at that time because he wiped the blood.
Right.
He punches the guy in the nose and pulls his hand back. And in between, it starts gushing like a faucet. He pulls back and punches him a second time. And then finally, the guy's like dazed.
2 punches.
And they had to stop. And the crazy thing is, my Seabachs didn't do anything. They just stood there. Because first of all, my Seabach from Hong Kong, those are not his students. It should have been the local area Seabach who said, hey, guys, you need to stop. Can you imagine if I brought the 2 of you to Hong Kong to visit another Sifu school? And I'm like, oh, you show Sifu so-and-so your chi sao, right? And then you go and you're going to try to show your chi sao skills and your techniques. And you guys start punching
Mikey
the
Deane
shit
just
out of each
starts
other.
punching me.
And you're bleeding all over the school. And I stand there with my arms folded and a dumb grin on my face like somehow this represents normal behavior. Okay? Going like, yeah, they're my students.
Crazy.
Yeah, they're trying to kill each other. I don't know. This is fine, I guess. And then they had to stop, right? The drunk guy turns around. He had like it was like an Armani suit he was wearing. Super nice custom shirt. His entire white shirt was covered in blood, Dre. Damn. It looked like he just murdered 3 people like Dexter, okay? Without the suits and everything. He just used the saw and cut someone. He was covered in blood in his white shirt.
Ouch.
He had to buy one of our Fist Comes From the Heart t-shirts just to leave the school without looking like he just committed a capital offense of murder. And they left and then, you know, they left and it was like, okay, see you later, Seabach. See you later, 2 student dudes. All right, hope you liked visiting my school.
What's wild is the people, the students down here.
No, they didn't know what was going on. They probably just heard some sounds or whatever, right? And I think it was mostly done by that time that fight had actually started happening.
Wow.
I left. I'm there with my Seabach from Hong Kong, who doesn't speak any English, but we can communicate in Cantonese. And we get out of the school, 6th Avenue.
Yeah.
We walk towards the subway. He doesn't say anything. We're here on 38th Street. We get to 39th Street. He's still silent. I'm just walking next to my Seabach. We get to 40th Street. And he just looks at me and he goes, Yamogao Choa. Like, what the hell? And then he's like, and then he just starts going off. He goes, why, my other Seabach, why didn't he stop that? Why did he think that was a proper exchange? And why were his students so angry with each other? That way he goes, oh, that was so stupid. They don't know, They don't know chi sao. They don't know modak, martial virtue. They don't know how to behave in someone's school. And why are they fighting? Why do they hate each other? What is their problem? And the thing is, when they left my school that night, they were like normal again.
Chilling.
As if somehow this was, look, I get it. The people that do, hey, you got trained real. No, this wasn't that. This wasn't that. This was something else. All right? The next day, the final addendum to the story, if you can call it that. You're Roman, all right?
Okay, my CA.
Yeah, you're seeing. He was, kind of helping us at the time. It was when he was still going to school, so he would come to the school early and take out the trash and do things like that. I come in the next day. He comes up to me. He goes, Sifu, I don't know how to tell you this. He goes, but there are a massive amount of tissues covered in blood in the garbage can upstairs. And because that blood that comes out of your nose is the real red stuff, right?
Yes.
And there was so much of it, that guy had to use so many tissues. So
Clots and all
that.
So
when Roman went to take out the trash, he looks in there, and it's just like someone had tried to clean a murder scene using tissues. And then I was like, oh yeah, and then I had to tell him what happened, man. That shit was wild, man. So that was probably that was definitely the craziest fight that ever happened at City Wing Chun. Oddly enough, didn't involve any of my students.
Oh, man. Wow.
And that's all I got to say about that. All right, guys. Well, that was the episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Do you have any crazy school fights, dojo wars, whatever you want to call it? Write them in the comments below. And also, if you have any questions for me to answer on an upcoming episode, go ahead and write those as well. And I'll see you guys next time.
Word is I'm a kung fu genius. Technique speaks for me, not lineage. Forget Jet Li, cause I'm the one. Many call me seafood, but to you I'm sea gung. And I produce masters. You surpassed us. Your kung fu stiffer than corpse and caskets. City Wing Chun is the house I built. Violate the gate and your blood gets spilt. Alex Richter, always the...
I'm all right. This is episode 23, tentatively titled School Scraps, but I got to work on that. I need something with a little more zing in it.
School scraps. I like school scraps. It's like
Yeah, but some of our audience is European. They don't know. They don't like the Germans. What is a scrap? I don't know.
Scraps,
It's a piece of food. Makes no sense.
Yeah. Lots of Chinese gangsters.
Lots of your groin is open if you kick like that, bro. Let's get to it. And seriously, we don't have a lot of time today for fuck-ups. Let's try to get this one straight.
Alright, peeps. On today's episode of the Kung Fu Genius, the genius will be going over fights inside of Kung Fu schools. Alright, peeps. On today's episode of the Kung Fu Genius, the genius will be talking about fights in Kung Fu schools. Lots of gems. Lots of Chinese gangsters. Lots of, your groin is open if you kick like that, bro. Let's get to it!
2 takes.
Yo, 2 take Jake in the place to bake a cookie.
Instead of all day Dre. Holy, see, he can do it when you put the pressure on him.
No,
We didn't have a lot of time today, so that's all I got to do. Yo, Dre, we don't have time today. I'm off of work today. No, we don't have time today.